Well, hey guys and gals out there in YouTube land, this is Pat
And I'm Heidi.
from Rain Country Homestead, and
God is good.
all the time. So this is about self-sufficiency and how to escape the rat race. Now this is a deep and wide subject, so we don't, this isn't for everybody, but it's kind of some of the things that we've done in order to get us from where we were to where we are now. It's been a lifelong endeavor, incorporating teamwork and such.
Definitely teamwork.
So Heidi was going to read a typical question that we get frequently.
That we had a video published about self-sufficiency and it not being free. You know, we were talking about the work and the costs involved of being self-sufficient. And basically it's just a realistic approach, you know, for the people who think, oh, if I become self-sufficient, I can live for free. Well, it's not quite that simple. But in that video, we had a couple people that had questions about how we are financially making it and able to do what we're doing from home without either one of us now having to work outside the home at a typical 9-to-5 job. And so how is that done? So let me go ahead and read these questions. The first one is by Willow Grove. I'm going to read the whole comment because they're excellent comments. Thanks for a great, insightful video, Mr. and Mrs. Rain. Husband and I are in our early 50s and are in the transition phase where both kids have left home now, but still need our support through university, etc. I would like to work towards a self-sufficient lifestyle right now, but we need a couple more years of hubby's income to secure our future. It's frustrating, but I know this time is well spent in gathering information and learning new skills. I just worry that by the time we get around to scaling down to a simpler life, we will be too old to enjoy it. What are your thoughts on age and self-sufficient living? I guess I partly know the answer. Do what you can with what you have, right? And then another one by Madeline Lawrence was really interesting discussion as always. I am really interested to know how you decided you could afford for Heidi to be at home full time, and then the more recent transition for Mr. Rain to be at home. I assume debt freedom is a big part of that readiness, but imagine lots of other things had to be factored in. Savings, income from Etsy store, etc. Would love to see a video on this. It would help many of us who are in the transition phase. And there were more comments very similar to that, so we thought it would be a good idea to go ahead and approach these in a separate video. We've been thinking about doing this for a while, been kind of putting it off for several reasons, but you know, we are still in the middle of transition, aren't we?
And will we always be?
Yeah.
This has been a lifelong pursuit. Some of the heart that actually needs to go into, or what you have to have as an attitude before you even consider this type of lifestyle. Being tenacious, having teamwork, both your spouse and you kind of being on the same page, having a true desire to develop skills. I mean, we were not born with all the things that we can do and we are practicing to do, or we're learning how to do. I'm for certainly not a genius by any small stretch, but necessity drives us to doing some of the things that we do by ourselves, and so there's got to be a drive, there's got to be an ambition, and a stick-to-itiveness, and not a heart of giving up in order to attain this type of a lifestyle. So, I want to preface this whole conversation with, you got to have the right mindset, you got to have the right attitude in order to initiate this type of a lifestyle, and it doesn't come overnight. Start small. It's kind of a scary thing. We're all creatures of habit, and change is not a very popular thing to most people. So if you can kind of stick your toe into it, check the temperature of the water, start small, whether it's prepping or being a homesteader. We kind of consider ourselves as on both fronts. Gosh, I can't do this and I can't do that. can't save, can't because of this, and I can't because of that. Can't never did anything, and can't never will. So, and that's easier said than done, because a lot of us are in different
Right.
facets of life. Each and every one of us has our own inabilities, or physical inabilities, or mental inabilities, or just things that are hanging over heads, like debt and financial struggles and different things like that. But you know what? Each and every one of us can look at our strengths and focus on those strengths and build on those strengths. And through that, it's going to enhance your confidence. And in that, it's going to also help you to venture off into other aspects of prepping or saving money. You're going to, these things are going to start to snowball, and these things are going to start to bolster your confidence in attaining new goals and new skills. I mean,
Right.
we are at the information age, and we have so many things at our fingertips. If you don't have a computer, well, most of us who are watching this video have a computer, so that
Some
marks
sort.
most of us out. But we all have the ability to go down to the library, talk to people who are in the know, talk to people who have experience. There's nothing wrong with asking questions. I mean, that is how we learn.
Before we continue on with our number one point on how you're able to achieve both people being able to be at home and make this work, I want to approach the fact that the question was asked, like, how could you afford for Heidi to start staying home? Well, I never did work outside the home. I never did. Except for before I met Patrick when I was single, and yeah, I was working outside the home. But then I started my own dance school, ballet school, because I had a whole lifetime of training in ballet. And when we got married and we bought this place, and it had this room that we're in right now was our former studio. Well, it used to be half this size, and I started in that small size, and as my business grew, the dance business, we expanded. And so I was always able to work from home and bring in an income, and also so that I could homeschool my kids. So I never had to put my kids in daycare or get a babysitter for them. Everything was done right here. Now, my personal thoughts are, and I came upon this just by seeing what we could do on our own, is that I don't think you need two people working outside the home to bring in a suitable income for you to make it, because you have to consider when both people are working outside the home, especially when you have young kids, well, you've got extra costs involved. Typically, it's going to involve pre-made foods and going out to eat and daycare. And you start adding all this stuff up. Oh, and both people driving to and from work. That's more cars insured. That's more fuel being used. I believe, honestly, that anyone could at least cut it down to a one-person income, and where the mom gets to actually stay at home and raise the kids herself and save a whole lot of money. And I think it balances out. I really believe that. But obviously, as Mr. Rain already stated, each situation is going to be different. So this is my opinion based on my own observances, that I believe it can be done. But you shouldn't feel guilty if it just absolutely can't because of your current financial situation. So how do we get ourselves to where at least one spouse can stay home and then eventually the other spouse? So what is the first number one thing that you need to do?
Get out of debt.
Get out of debt.
We get so locked up in thinking that we need certain things. And going back to my first statement, you have to take and evaluate each and everything and determine whether or not that is a need or a want.
Yep.
Right down to how many vehicles you have in the yard. Can you settle for a used vehicle? I gave up my manhood when I got a Geo Metro. Not that I don't have pickups, but I mean, I
But
really had to swallow a lot of pride in order to, get that first economical car. But I'm
that was
so
for
glad.
commuting.
Yeah, it's for
To and from
commuting. I
work.
was so glad that I did, because I increased my fuel economy by over double. And, I mean, it wasn't pretty.
And it was cheaper to
But-
insure.
It was very cheap to insure, cheap to put tires on it, took less oil to make an oil change. All those factors, that's just one single item, but that's just one of those factors that we started to incorporate into our lifestyles that made our dollar stretch. So basically, we're making more per hour. If you stop and look at it, you had
Right.
less overhead, you had less people putting less of corporations putting their hands in your pocket and removing that money. There's so many different things out there that are drawing your attention and putting a financial strain and burden on your household that most of us don't even realize how much that is. But $5 is $5 and $2 is $2, and that all adds up. And we used to think when we first started this venture that, man, that's not gonna make any difference. And it's just like a water leak. If you got a water leak, you have half a gallon a minute, that's not much water. But if you multiply 1,440 minutes in a day, that is 750 gallons of water, and multiply that over a 30-day period, that's a considerable amount of water loss. So we got to fix that leak. We got to fix that. You got to fix that money leak. We have to figure out ways to cut back, figure out how to provide for yourself. Being it's, there's a lot of services out there, a lot of professionals that'll come in and fix your heat or fix your lights or fix your buildings or mow your lawn or fix your cars. And they're all waiting there for you to give them a phone call so they can do that service, so they can also tap into your back pocket. So all of these things, how did we get out of debt and how did we do all these things? We started doing these things for ourselves. We started doing without.
Yeah, and we have a video, just because this video is going to get really long as it is. So we're not going to go into all the details about how we got out of debt, because we have a video just on that. And I'll go ahead and link to that right up there so you can go check it out. But really, that number one thing is you have to get yourself out of debt. And it doesn't matter the situation you're in, you can do it. Even if it's only putting $2 a month extra on your house payment or car payment, or putting $200 or $2,000. It's just gonna start small, and you'll find a way to make it snowball to where you're putting more and more all the time.
Right.
So go check that video out. But I want to go back to something that Mr. Rain said about basically the whole idea of changing your mentality. We really have to break ourselves out of the mentality that we have to do everything the way society tells us. The way you celebrate holidays, or even if you do celebrate holidays, do you have to? Can't you make your own special family events that are going to cost a lot less and not break the bank? Do you have to have that particular make and model of car or that particular cup of coffee every time you go to work because that is a status symbol? We're kind of told how we should buy, what we should do, what we should celebrate by society, by our culture. And we need to break out of that. We need to say, you know what, I'm going to stop allowing my society and my culture to tell me how I should dress and live. And once you're able to break away from that, then you can start finding a more financially suitable way to live. Because that really, that's a lot of times that is where most of people's money is going, is towards buying that particular brand name of car or clothing or whatever. And you just have to break out of that. And I tell you, once you do, there's a lot of freedom there, a lot of freedom. So that brings us to the next point, and that is savings. So once you get out of debt, not that you can't do this while you're getting out of debt, but sometimes that, really focusing on getting that debt wiped out is the first thing. Then the next thing is start putting money away in forms of cash, in forms of investments in different ways. That can be through the bank. We all have different feelings on that, if you don't actually have the money in the form of a hard, tangible asset, then you don't have the money.
Right.
But sometimes, it's starting simple with a CD in the bank that earns a minimal amount of interest can be a way to start, because at least that makes it a little bit more untouchable, so you're not as tempted to take it and go spend it on unnecessary things.
So how do we make our millions and millions of dollars that we make? Anyway,
Not.
just kidding. We're comfortable. We don't live the Ritz,
Nope.
but we are debt free. So that really has a big effect on what it takes for us to make it from month to month. And that didn't happen overnight.
No.
And again, we could have probably done that a lot sooner if we may have sold off a bunch of stuff. But a lot of the stuff, I shouldn't say most, but a lot of the stuff that we have help augment our push towards independence.
Right.
And help assist us in doing things for ourselves,
Right.
such as tools, kitchen gadgets, sewing machines, stuff like that. Those are all tangible assets that we've invested in over the years to help us get to that point. So we don't need as much capital to make the payments that we have to make now. Our payments include, we're still hooked to the city water, we're still hooked to the public utility. We don't use that stuff as much, and
Right.
we're very frugal on how we utilize those utilities. So at the end of the month, instead of our power bill being $500, it's sometimes the service charge is more
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
what our kilowatt usage is.
Our electric use might only be $10-15, so.
So those are ways that helped us to get where we are today, and that's why we don't need as much to take us from month to month to month.
Now, as far as ways to earn income, well, what we are doing, we have the YouTube, and yes, it does bring us in a monthly income that when you first get started, it's pretty much nothing. And, as your subscriber count builds, as you get more views, because your income on YouTube is based strictly on the amount of views you get. So you could have 1 million subscribers, but if you're only getting a couple hundred views on each of your videos, you're not making very much money at all.
Mm-hmm.
And since we dropped down to 3 videos a week, you figure that we'd only drop down maybe by 2/5, because we were putting 5 videos out. Well, actually, we've dropped down a lot more than that. We're making half, at this point, making half what we were making when we were putting out 5 videos a week. And because YouTube's not promoting our videos as much, and so the videos we are putting out are getting far less views than they used to. And so if you're considering doing a YouTube channel, it requires a lot of work to be able to get it to a livable wage. But if nothing else, the amount that we do make does definitely contribute. As small as it is, our overhead is so low that it pretty much pays a quarter to a third of what we need monthly. And
She gets up about 4 o'clock in the morning and starts to work YouTube and starts to fill orders that she has on her skirts and aprons and different things. What did we figure you made about after overhead? There's shipping costs and there's costs of buying material and all these different things.
I might make $5 an hour.
Maybe $5 an hour.
On
But that
skirts.
$5 an hour, to some people, it's like, wow, that's not much money. Well, it isn't much money, but when you consider that you have a limited overhead, then that $5 will stretch farther.
Right.
And so,
And really, our Etsy store is actually our #1 source of income.
right.
And so obviously that's not going to be for everyone, but you know, because we're both fairly artistic people and we're able to make various different products. You know, for me, the #1 thing is the skirts and the aprons, but I also have the soaps and the skin creams, and then he has all his various wood products. I did put a couple of patterns for those who already crochet, and I plan to put out more when I can take the time to sit down and write those up. But these are some things you can look into, but really the YouTube and the Etsy store have to kind of go hand in hand. If it wasn't for YouTube, we wouldn't be able to get our name out there in order to sell our product. Because long before YouTube, people were telling me, oh, you should put your stuff up on Etsy. Well, I tried it and couldn't sell anything. But the YouTube is what has helped the Etsy store. So I started all over with the Etsy store when people started wanting the skirts. And so that's where our #1 source of income is. And we want to say right now, thank you to all of you who have been supporting us through that. Well, through all the ways. But, you know, that has really, really got us to the point to be more independent and be able to set our own hours, our own time, and do what we want to do in order to make it work here for us, so that he doesn't have to work a high-stress job that, you know, you guys know, I mean, those jobs, they can get so stressful, and is it worth it? So like I said to one person, is it worth it to kill yourself at a job because you're so worried about that particular retirement that somebody said you had to have that type of retirement, when by the time you finally get to the age where you can get it, now you're wore out, maybe you're dead because of the stress it took a toll on your heart and on your, you know, and you had a stroke or whatever. And so, you know, living more simply, as far as, you know, it's not simple as in ease, but simple as in not feeling like you have to do all of this other stuff, but just focusing on what you really need and what makes you happy and content. And that does a lot for a person's overall health, you know, mental and physical health. And that's, you know, that is why we chose to go this way too. We're healthier, we're happier, and it's, you know, you just have to ask yourself those questions. Is it more important to have the big fancy rig and to make a name for yourself, you know, and have everybody admire your, you know, whatever purse or whatever pair of jeans, or, you know, is it about you being able to be healthy and happy and content where you're at?
Well, there's the snowball effect when it comes to getting yourself from the corporate norm to being financially independent. And I use that term loosely because you're never financially independent. At least I don't believe so. There are probably some people out there that can argue that fact, but I think we're getting closer and closer and closer to that goal of, you know, our goal is no overhead, and that's always been our goal. We know that that's not possible. Well, we don't feel that that's possible, but we are working towards that end. So that $5 an hour that Heidi might be making, or I might be making off of a few little wood products that I put out, that money will stretch further, and we can hopefully eliminate some of those overheads. So me and Heidi, we sit in the morning, we have a cup of coffee, and quite often we talk about, well, what can we cut back on? You know, what else can we do away with? Your guys' hunger for knowledge has helped us by way of YouTube advertising. YouTube is just one source.
Right.
And what we try to do is we try to maximize, you know, somebody made a comment about rabbits. You know, they raise rabbits for meat, they raise rabbits for fertilizer, and they raise rabbits for the angora coming off of the rabbit. We try to look at that same exact mindset with everything that we do. So with that being said, like the cedar tree in the front yard, I could have cut the tree down, removed the stump, hauled it off to the garbage dump and paid $10 to get it removed. That would have took me about a half a day of work. But I started thinking and reading some of your guys' comments and thinking, you know what, I could probably make something out of the tree, you know, and some people might want a keepsake from rain country, and some people might want something that we build or a product that we build. And so we tried a couple of products and they seem to be selling okay. I mean, we're not getting rich, but that helps.
Yeah.
Every little thing that we do helps. We sold the cedar boughs, and that helps. And everything we do, we try to add value. You know, you've heard the term value-added products or value-added. That is all part of the mindset of taking those rabbits and using their waste in order to supplement something else and benefit, you know, growth in your vegetables. And you know, you take that fur, you don't just sell the fur, maybe you make yarn out of that fur. Or alpacas, you know, Heidi's bartering with someone for alpaca yarn.
She spins it herself.
But she spins it herself, and she has a product there that she has the resources, the knowledge, and the equipment to process. And so there's bartering there that you don't have to take money, and no money has to change hands. You can trade goods for services and services for goods, or
at least until Mrs. Rain finally learns how to gets the time, makes the time to be able to start using this thing and spinning her own yarn. But yeah, I mean, but at any rate, it's still, I enjoy it because it's a way I can also help somebody else out. So I don't mind doing that, you know, with some things here and there, because it's a win-win. We're helping each other out, and that's what's so great about bartering. So some other ways that you can make it work for you. So if you live in a place where you've got at least enough space to have quite a few chickens, then what you can do is get enough chickens where you've got eggs for yourself, and then all your surplus eggs you turn around and sell them, and those eggs, the money you make from those eggs will pay for the feed for your chickens. So it's totally self-sustainable, and you're getting the eggs. Yes, you're putting in the time, the work, but chickens are relatively easy. They don't take a lot of time. They don't take a lot of work. So that's why I say, again, chickens and quail are really great places to start, because you can make money off the excess eggs. Even with just 7 chickens, 7 hens, when they're laying, we get more eggs than we could possibly use. Now, I don't get enough that I feel comfortable starting to advertise and sell, because I would rather just share them with my kids and then take some of the other excess. Like right now, my chickens aren't laying, so what I've been doing is using eggs that I froze up in little packs of 2 out of the freezer. That means everything I use them in has got to be baked goods or, you know, an omelet, but hey, it's still eggs, and I still don't have to go to the store to do it. So when I made that big batch of pumpkin bread yesterday, I pulled out 2 bags with 4 eggs, because there's 2 in each bag, and there I had my eggs. I didn't have to go to the store and get eggs, even though my chickens aren't laying. So it's, you know, it's really a great place to start. Same thing applies to any of the produce you grow. For me, I don't, because we have such a small area, the produce we grow is mostly for us. I don't plan on turning around and sell it. I don't see us being able to grow enough at this point where we could turn around and sell it. But maybe, you know, we get these fruit trees in. We know that apple tree puts out more apples than we can use. But again, right now, most of our excess goes to family. And, you know, it's just the way that we give and share with them, because, well, they're our family, especially our kids. But now, as far as my herbs, I've been selling the seeds off the herbs, because a lot of people are wanting the seeds. They know, especially people that live in a more wet climate like us, they want something that's more acclimated to our area. So I save the seeds, or we work on this together, the saving of the seeds and packaging them up, and we sell those on our Etsy store. But you can sell them locally. There's all kinds of things that you can do. I've had people want me to start selling my dried herbs, and I may do that eventually, but there's so much time and work involved that, you know, I would have to charge more than what a person would be able to go online and buy an organic herb for, like, you know, go to Mountain Rose Herbs or Amazon. So I would definitely have to charge more, because the amount of time and energy that goes into doing that. So at this point, I'm not, but that might be something you can do. It's just some things you got to consider.
It's really tough to compete against industry because
Right.
you don't have the machines and tooling in order to mass produce a product that comes with woodworking or
Skirt making.
yeah, any of that kind of stuff. You know, some people will say, "Well, how come you got to charge over $15 for that?" You know,
Because
well,
I'm not
you might
China.
only take $15.
I'm not China Mart.
Yeah, it probably takes $15 just to buy the materials to start building it. You know, then you got to have a little bit for your time. And like I said, I mean, Heidi, she works herself quite long hours in order to make her business go. And so,
But I don't mind it because I can do
She
it
loves
right
doing it,
here in the
exactly.
privacy of my own home. I don't have to go out and work for somebody else. I'm doing it right here. I can
Right.
set my own hours. Some other ways I wanted to touch on that you can consider making some money. One of the things we do, and this is going to sound really backwards to some people, using our credit card. What? Yes, we use our credit card to make money.
every chance we get.
We, like, literally. Now, some people need to get rid of their credit cards altogether because it's too much of a temptation, but for us, we have never paid a cent on our credit card. We earned
interest.
in interest. We have earned a lot of money though over the years by using this card. In fact, we just earned another $250. That covers at least a whole month's worth of groceries, including we don't eat that much food, but that means I like to budget for stocking up on more stuff. So that's another whole month there. Now, it might have taken us quite a while to build up that amount of points, but hey, when that $250 comes around, that's a real blessing. And so that's one way that we earn money. You have to be disciplined though. You can't, you don't use the credit card to buy anything unless you know you've already got the money there to pay it, period. That's how you do it. And as soon as the credit card bill, as soon as it shows up, I'm on the bank every single day. As soon as the charge is there, it gets paid off, just like that. I don't let it sit. And so, yeah, and so we are always earning that percentage. It's like 1 to 2%. And then if you have like a Costco card, if you shop enough at Costco and you're there, you know, every week at least, and you do all your shopping there, then it's worth it to go with a Costco executive membership. You get 2% back. So at the end of the year, not only do you get your whole card paid for, you usually can get enough money to buy some more groceries with. And so that's a really good way to do it. Plus you're all the money you're saving by getting a lot of the stuff at Costco. We used to do that, but for us, it's just financially not really worth it,
Yeah, we
because
don't have
it's
kids in the
too
home
much of a
anymore.
drive to go, you know, to drive the 75 miles to Costco. It's 150 miles round trip, you know, just to save money. So how much money did we just spend on fuel? So if a Costco is close enough to you, you got a big enough family, and that's something you can do. That's another way you can help, you know, add. Obviously, it's not a monthly. It's not something you get paid monthly. You only get paid it once a year. But again, it's really going to help out, and you can take that extra money and then when you get it, and then stock up ahead. So during the lean months, you've got a good pantry going.
Yeah, you got to be able to. The system's designed to take everything out of your pocket, and credit cards are no exception. Credit cards are depending on you to make a minimum payment.
Yep.
And that's why they give these, you know, 1 to 2% cash back bonuses, because they're hoping that you're going to get in there and you're going to spend, but you're only going to make those minimum payments, but you're going to get a little return after a certain amount of time. But you can work that by keeping those credit cards paid off. You're still going to get that money back, but they're going to be paying you. You're not going to be paying them.
Yep.
And there's several
They
different
pay
things
us to
out.
use their card.
There's several different things out there that if you just stop and really analyze what's going on, ask yourself, how can I circumvent this and make it work to my advantage? How can I earn from this instead of it costing me? You know.
Right.
And that's how we got from me working a full-time job, us working out of the home. It doesn't happen overnight. We're not encouraging anybody to just go ahead and throw their hands up in the air and say, I quit, and go home without a plan. You got to have a plan. And our Get Out of Debt video will explain how to graduate from start to finish, and as far as getting out of debt. But that's the first step. You know, you got to take control of your finances, take control of your life, take control of your assets, and downsize where you can. Maximize what you have in order to get it to work for you. And and a credit card is just one way to do that.
Yep, that's just one of the many ways. And then some other things to consider is, like, if you've got a farm and you've got heavy equipment, like we don't have a farm, but we have heavy equipment. We've got the dump truck, an equipment trailer, and the backhoe. And now, we have that right now for the sake of if we ever get the property, or, you know, he uses the backhoe quite a bit. We help our son, or we use it here for digging up the stumps out of the yard and doing various other things. But you could also turn those things into a lucrative business yourself. You just have to keep in mind, especially, I don't know, each state's probably different, but there's going to be fees involved in getting a business set up when you're talking about contracting, and you know, you got to get licensed and bonded and special insurance, and it can be a pretty big thing. You know, we've done that before in the past, and it's a pretty big expense getting going, but it usually can quickly pay for itself, and that's one way you can do it.
Well, one thing you'll find out as well, if you're really serious about getting into the self-sufficiency, and you start to learn these different trades and skills, you can start considering utilizing those to help others, so you can get, you know, some sort of a financial income or a barter income from other sources. So, you know, if you know, gosh, you know, I don't know anything about plumbing, so you just get in there and you learn it, you figure it out, and somebody down the road might not know anything about plumbing, and they might not even care to learn about plumbing. But maybe you know something about it, and you can go down there and help them. You know, maybe they can give you some chicken eggs, or trade some sort of a skill that they might have in order to augment your,
like carpentry.
Help stretch your dollar, you know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or skirt making.
Right. Right.
But it's like, you know, when my friend, when we were getting the milk from her, and like I said, we were doing some bartering there too, but that went on for almost 2 years, that we did not have to buy any milk from the store, and that was great. And you add that up, how much milk is, you know, especially the organic milk, because when I have to buy milk at the store, that's the only milk I'm going to buy. I would buy raw if it was available, but they don't have it here. But you know, it really added up, and we were getting good, healthy raw goat's milk every week, a gallon to sometimes 2 gallons a week. And
well, and she did that because that was her way of
paying us back for the YouTube.
Yeah.
But I still gave her extra stuff because she's my friend, and I appreciated that, and I didn't want her to ever feel like I was taking advantage of her.
Right.
So yeah, and we talked about skills. You know, use whatever skills you have, but don't be afraid. You're never too old to learn a new skill. And if you're willing to really put in the time and start learning, dig in and learn the skills. You know, we're not the only channel out there that shows you how to do all these different things like woodworking and sewing and crocheting. There's more out there, and I don't knit, but there's ladies out there that do. And you can find videos on that. You can find videos on how to spin. You can find videos on how to do anything. Learn the skill, pick what skill it is you want, learn it, and then turn around and use that to supplement your income. Again, going back to my old business, you know, I spent my whole growing up years in ballet, and then as an adult with my kids, we earned our black belts in Taekwondo and in Wei Gung Fu. We were then in turn able to turn that into a business, because here in this small town, there wasn't any good martial arts school here, so we were able to start our own right here. And so people didn't have to do what we were doing at the time, and that was driving 60 miles into town to take our classes, to earn our black belts and do what we're doing. But there, you know, all these things, you know, the things that you learn, the skills that you learn can be turned into cash. You just have to decide, what are you passionate about? What do you want to learn how to do? And then you can turn around and either teach it to other people and get paid for it, or use that skill to make money by the product you have to sell.
Something to go along with that is, one might say, well, gosh, in order to be a carpenter, you have to have all these tools. In order to be a seamstress, you have to have all this equipment. You got to have sewing machines and all this other stuff to go with it. Well, yeah, you do. But how do you acquire that? Do you go out and you buy the top of the line, full price, full meal deal for this equipment in order to get you going? Not necessarily. If you're patient and if you're resourceful, you look on eBay or Craigslist or garage sales or buy, sell, or trade places online, and be patient enough and know what you're buying. And you don't necessarily have to have the top of the line tool or widget in order to pursue what you want to pursue. You can start out small and work up from there. You can get a cheaper saw, for instance, and make that work for you until you can afford to get a bigger one or a better one. Maybe that one's going to be just fine for you. Maybe you're just saying, well, I don't use this thing that often to where I really need to have a saw nicer than this one. So a lot of those things you can start small and work up from there, but you don't have to spend a fortune on infrastructure in order to kind of get your little business going.
To get it going right. When I started teaching ballet, what did I have? That was in 1989 when I first started teaching ballet. We didn't have this place. We weren't married yet. We didn't have this home. I started renting out an area at the local gym, the only one that was here at the time. And I had a cheap old stereo that I'd had from my teens and a couple of cassette tapes that my previous ballet teacher had recorded for me.
Any of y'all know what cassettes are?
And that's all I had. That's all I had to start with. And right off the bat, though, I managed, because there was nobody teaching ballet here in this small town, I was able to get going right away. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't long before I could invest in a better stereo equipment and some more music, some more ballet class music, and get some better stuff and better sound. But it doesn't have to be big and fancy to start with. Yes, you usually have to have some investment, but depending on what it is, it doesn't have to totally break the bank to get started. Right,
to get started. Now, a good example of that is the video equipment that we're utilizing, that you're watching us through right now. That old Sony camera is, 20 years old.
I don't think it's quite that old, because
15
we've
years
gone
old?
through a few video cameras, but we bought this when I was still doing ballet performances.
So it's a pretty old camera, but it's still working pretty good.
Yeah, it's still doing good.
Eventually we'll have to replace it or augment it with something.
I do want to talk a little bit before we close up about going back to savings and retirement and stuff like that. Well, right now we're making it totally on what we're doing right here. What you see us doing on YouTube and the things that we make, and that's what we're surviving on. But as far as all that goes, there is, it is still recommended that you build up that nest egg. I want to reiterate that, because I think it's a really good idea to have something set aside for emergencies. Well, no, I don't think. I know it is. Because you're going to have some months you don't know when you're doing this stuff on your own. You never know from month to month. We could just people could all suddenly stop watching our channel and stop buying stuff off our Etsy store, and then what? And then there's no money coming in. And so we know that at least we have something to fall back on if we absolutely have to. We haven't needed to yet, which has been wonderful, but we know it's there. And also the other thing is that, again, we've mentioned in other things about being financially prepared. We have a video just on financial preparedness I'll link to right up here. Getting ahead on any bills that you possibly can. Mm-hmm. Now, some places don't allow you to do certain things like like I mentioned in that video, some people said my bank doesn't allow me to do that. Our public utilities doesn't allow us to do that. But here they do. We can pay ahead on our water bill. We can pay ahead on our utility. We're actually a year ahead on both our water and our public power bills. And so if anything happens and we can't pay those bills, we're good for at least a year or more. And of course, then I'm sure we'd be even more frugal and, you know, just using a drop of water to bathe in or something. But anyway, just, you know, just some things that you really need to consider. And no, there's so many more skills and things that we could talk about. You could start a landscaping business or just mowing lawns. It could be, you know, it doesn't just have to be for kids. You'd be surprised at how many people refuse to mow their own lawns, even though they're physically able to do it. That's a good place to get started. You can do, there's a couple of businesses around here that they just mow people's lawns and they do pretty good at it. So something to consider.
Right.
So, okay.
And all it takes is a lawnmower.
Yeah.
And a weed eater to get started.
And that's not a very, that doesn't have to cost that much money to get started, not at all. Please, please put in comments below, put down some other ideas that I know that we're not thinking of, or maybe that you do down below, of ways that you can make money at home so that you can be free from the rat race and not having to work outside the home for the man.
Right. Anyway, we appreciate you coming by.
Thanks for watching.
Take care.
And God bless.